Chapter 7. Echoes of a Song. The wagon's wheels creaked incessantly, a monotonous melody to their journey. Astarion sat beside Tav, his staff laid across his lap as he listened to the world pass by, hooves pounding, voices shouting, and the wind whispering secrets he could no longer see. Their journey had been a 10-day at least, marked by secret rituals. Tavriel would occasionally announce her intention to hunt, a bow slung over her shoulder. Astarion would accompany her, returning with venison, its blood mysteriously drained. The caravan was none the wiser, content with fresh meat and no questions asked. On other nights, Astarion would quietly accept the sustenance offered from Tav's own wrist, a bitter mingling of need and closeness. Tav sat next to him, her iridescent eyes catching the warm sunlight filtering through the canopy of trees. Every so often, she would hum a soft tune, a melody that tried to dispel the growing cloud of despondency hanging over him. Once the epitome of elven grace and agility, Astarion now found himself gripping the sides of the wagon, feeling every rut and bump in the road as though they were insults from the gods. The staff, a gift though it was, lay like a leaden weight, its very presence a constant reminder. His crimson eyes might be dead to the world, but he could feel the gazes of other travelers like pinpricks on his skin, curious, pitiable, and some, he suspected, contemptuous. Tavriel sensed the tense line of his shoulders, his down-turned head, and felt her heart swell, a curious blend of love and exasperation. She reached out and placed her hand over his, her fingers interlocking with his own, as if to pull him out of the dark crevice of his mind. "We're nearly there, love," she said softly, knowing that there meant not just Baldur's Gate, but a complex new phase of their intertwined lives.
As they approached the city gates, heralded by the clamour of reconstruction and the stench of both life and decay, Astarion felt an odd combination of relief and dread. Baldur's Gate was both the scene of his triumph and now, he feared, a theatre for his humiliation. He could no longer be the dashing rogue who stood beside Tav as one of the heroes of Baldur's Gate. What was he now? A blind, dependent creature, bereft of the shadows he once commanded? It made him dip his head in an attempt to hide a snarl that curled his lips. Yet as they disembarked, with Tav guiding him gently through the throng and toward the familiar, if not entirely welcoming, environs of the Elfsong Tavern, he felt the faintest glimmer of something he dared not name. Hope? Or perhaps the stubborn ember of his indomitable spirit, refusing to be snuffed out.
The Elfsong Tavern had been their home for many days during their first arrival together in Baldur's Gate, a time that felt like ages ago now. Tav's mind flooded with memories from that time, innumerable feelings shared between her and all her companions, especially Astarion, the handsome high elf with noble airs and roguish wit. She remembered the night they had rescued him from Cazador, the sadistic bastard who had enslaved him. Astarion had ruthlessly and rightfully murdered Cazador, leaving his undead corpse to rot in his own dungeons. But on that night, Astarion had also been freed from the threat of slavery, only to be cast back into the shadows, forever cursed as a vampire spawn. Guilt gnawed at Tav's heart as she led Astarion up the stairs. She watched him use his staff to find each step, and her heart twisted into an ugly knot. It took every ounce of her resolve to swallow back her tears and keep moving forward. This was her fault, all her fault. If she hadn't been so whimsical and carefree, she wouldn't have offered him the sun itself. She wouldn't have compelled him to follow her into the depths of that ruin, in search of a relic that only carried whispers of half-truths. But yes, he could walk in the sun, just as promised, yet cursed to walk in darkness. The cruelty of it made Tavriel's throat tighten, but she swallowed hard as they entered their room. She kept busy, storing their belongings in the wardrobe, while Astarion, still holding his staff, mapped out the room with his hand, vaguely searching for a chair, a desk, or the wardrobe. Tav changed out of her travel robes into her comfortable chemise and bodice, cautiously watching him as she did. Each step seemed like a mountain for him to climb, the tap of his staff against the wooden floor echoing like a tolling bell, a melancholic sound that did not escape her notice. Astarion had traded his studded leather armor for a more comfortable and elegant doublet and shirt. The handsome leather coat was carefully stored away in the wardrobe with the rest of the meagre belongings. They had plenty of gold, and more than enough praise as the heroes to warrant a free stay at the tavern for as long as they needed. Yet he felt like a pauper, as if he should be begging in the streets. He refused to share this thought with Tav, and focused instead on the room they now shared above the tavern. "There's a delightful-looking bed here, my love. It looks so much more comfortable than a bedroll." Astarion froze as Tav's footsteps drew closer, feeling her hand on his arm, guiding him to the bed. He let her lead him. When they reached the edge of the mattress, she guided his hand to feel the plush quilt beneath his fingertips, its rich texture and elaborate embroidery tickling his skin.
Astarion didn't want to feel textures, didn't want to know what colour it was or what it looked like. His hand found the bed, and he let himself sink down onto it to sit. The staff stayed loosely in his hands, letting it lean against his shoulder as he slumped. So, back in Baldur's Gate. Not quite the homecoming I'd imagined, to be honest.
Tav felt the words pierce through her, each syllable like a thorn embedding itself into her soul. She sat beside him, their thighs lightly touching, a comforting closeness that both needed yet neither acknowledged. She looked at him, taking in his downturned face, the way he clutched the staff as though it were a comfort and an encumbrance all at once. "Astarion, I wish I—"
Don't torture yourself, darling. We both knew the risks. So, what's the plan now, love? More ruins to plunder? More baubles to chase? There was a bitter edge there that almost seemed to Tav to be purposeful. Her eyes narrowed, and her cheerfulness faltered.
"We came back to recuperate, to plan our next move. You know that, Astarion."
Oh yes, plan. Perhaps I should trade in my rapier for a loom. What do you think? I could be a blind weaver. I hear there's a market for abstract rugs.
"That's not fair. You're still you. You're still capable of—"
Fair. What about this is fair, love? Don't wrap this in the illusion of normalcy.
"You are more than your eyes, Astarion. You saved me."
Ah, yes, my swan song. A little heroism to cap off a life of villainy and vice.
"Some things may have changed, Astarion, but it doesn't have to change us. I love you."
You're in love with an illusion, Tav. A relic from a life that no longer belongs to me. Not this one, who can barely cross a room without stumbling. He thumped his staff on the floor firmly, as if to punctuate his words.
Tavriel's heart constricted as Astarion's bitter words hung in the air. The passionate, fiery Astarion she had known was gone, replaced by a man filled with resentment. For a moment they sat in silence, contemplating their frayed relationship and the uncertain future ahead. Reaching out, she gently cupped his face, turning his empty gaze towards her. She searched his ruby eyes, seeing the desolate darkness that she could never fully understand. No, I love the person who sits beside me, imperfect, flawed, but still you.
I don't know what I am.
It pained Tavriel to hear Astarion speak so harshly of himself. Her mind whirled with memories of his courage and strength, running headfirst into danger, lifting her up when she had fallen in battle, driving his dagger into the throats of Baal cultists, facing both men and monsters with tenacious veracity. Yet now he was a sulking erudite noble with no hope left in his soul. Sulking and silence had become stale company. She longed to escape the confining room they would likely call home for the coming 10 days. She asked, "How about a walk? Fresh air might do us both some good. I'm curious to see how much the city has changed since we left."
Astarion arched an eyebrow, his expression incredulous. A walk? Are you joking? The last thing I want to do is be seen tapping around the city with this blasted staff. What would people say? Astarion, the blind elf. That's a tale for the bards, isn't it?
"Astarion, don't let your vanity imprison you," Tav said softly, taking his hand firmly in hers. His grip tightened around her fingers, as if he hesitated to pull away. After an agonizing pause, he relaxed and laced his fingers with hers.
All right, fine. Let's go on your little promenade, but not the main streets. Best we stick to the alleys. Fewer eyes, less gossip.
"I'll take what I can get." Astarion's tension was palpable as they descended the creaking stairs of the Elf Song Tavern. He navigated with his staff, tapping it cautiously ahead of him, each step a calculated maneuver. It was a stark contrast to the roguish silver elf Tav had come to know, the one who moved with the feline grace of a panther. The tavern was bustling, filled with patrons who cast curious glances in their direction. Whispers wove through the air like tendrils of mist, indistinct but impossible to ignore. Astarion could hear them all, she knew. His newfound blindness had made his hearing hyper-acute. He held his staff with an elegance that belied its utilitarian purpose, but its mere presence screamed his new reality to the world. Astarion was an elf of impeccable beauty, refined in a handsome doublet, silver-white curls coiffed effortlessly. His elven ears seemed to stand taller, as if straining to catch the unspoken words around him. Every mannerism, every inch of his posture still spoke of nobility, yet his staff marked him as a subject of curiosity, a source of whispered tavern tales. Tav moved quickly, her hand a gentle presence on his lower back as she guided him through the crowd. The air was thick with the aroma of ale and sweat, but they pressed on, aiming for the side door, away from prying eyes and toward the anonymity of the alleyways. As they stepped outside, the murmurs of the tavern were replaced by the sounds of a city under repair, hammering, sawing, and the occasional curses of frustrated labourers. Baldur's Gate was still picking up the pieces, just like they were.
Well, here we are. Baldur's Gate in all its post-war glory. I must say it's a sight to behold.
"Come on, Astarion," she said gently. He kept his head held as high as ever, she noted, but let himself be guided further down a quiet alley behind the elf song. It wasn't quite the sunlit walk she had been hoping for, but if Astarion could make the compromise to even join her, the least she could do was the same for him. She reached down to take his free hand, her thumb brushing over the carnelian on his ring, comforted by how easily their fingers interlaced, as if he didn't have to think about it, even while concentrating on the staff tapping ahead of his steps. It was curious to watch him, and infinitely heartbreaking. "Do you want to talk?" Tav tried to sound light. They were the only words she could think of, and even she found it as a weak attempt to start a conversation.
No, darling, but I think you do.
He continued to navigate the cramped alleyways, tapping a rhythmic pattern, cautiously stepping around the edge of a crate, a counter-melody to the distant sounds of the city. The spoken reluctance to engage in conversation caused Tav to remain mute, so she tightened her grip on his hand and walked with him in silence. The alleys of Baldur's were no place for a leisurely stroll. Stacked crates, barrels, pails, all creating a maze of obstacles. Laundry hung high overhead. The smells were almost as potent as the docks, causing Astarion to occasionally wrinkle his nose. He just hoped he wouldn't step into something as foul. There were fewer people here, and even then they could not help but stare at the proud pair of elves, one with a long braid of blue-black hair, the other with striking silver-white curls. Their casual attire was of a finer elegance than the common folk of the city, and Tavriel knew that they looked decidedly out of place. The tapping of his staff echoed between the buildings, and Tavriel felt the eyes of onlookers, who saw them as they walked by. She caught their lingering gazes, then noticed their heads drawn close together as they spoke in whispers. Tav pressed her face against Astarion's shoulder as they continued forward. "You're still you. Even in the face of all this, I can't help feeling like I've taken something precious from you."
He paused, his staff stilled against the cobblestone. In a rare moment of lucidity, Astarion realized he had been unfair. The future held deep uncertainty, but his love for her and her unwavering support remained as tangible as the ring on his finger. Tavriel deserved better, said a small voice in his mind. And what if I told you that you've given me something equally precious in return? He turned to face her, his hand lifting to cradle her cheek in a tender touch. It had been too long since he had touched her so dearly, and her heart soared as she leaned into his hand. I've lived a life of take and take, with very little give, but it's different now. You've given me so much more than I've given you, my darling Tavriel.
A gentle kiss was placed on his hand, another on his knuckles. Then Tavriel leaned up and kissed him tenderly on his lips. He responded instantly, returning her kiss with sweetness. The feeling of Tavriel's lips on his was a comfort he hadn't realized he'd missed so deeply. For a moment, the disorienting darkness and the harsh reality of his new life seemed to fade away, leaving only the tactile symphony of their connection. The weight of her as she leaned into him, the smell of jasmine and lilac in her hair, all felt more real in that brief, tender moment, and it made him feel alive. As their lips parted, Astarion felt the cool air brush his cheek.
Shall we continue our little stroll then, my love?
There was a modicum of mirth in his tone, a little forced and tinged with melancholy, but genuine all the same.
"A resounding yes," Tav responded, giving him one more kiss on his cheek. They continued their walk, their hands intertwined once more, each step in rhythm with the beating of their hearts.
As they rounded the corner, the clamour of the crowd grew louder, signalling they were close to a plaza. The atmosphere felt vibrant, alive, juxtaposed against the hidden alleys. It was a world teeming with performance and art. It was just the kind of place Astarion would have revelled in, and perhaps even made a spectacle of himself, if circumstances had been different. This time, he shrank a little from the sounds, before Tav said,
"Do you hear that?"
The harmonious sound of a lute broke through the noise, its melody crisp and fluid. I do, and it's entrancing, though the source seems familiar. Astarion's ears perked up as he listened intently. A crowd had gathered in a small plaza, clapping and cheering, which made Astarion hesitate, almost stopping entirely before leaving the safety of the enshrouded alley. Vain though he was, he felt the sun as an offensive spotlight while he played the bumbling fool. Tav's gentle prodding coaxed him out of the shadows. Astarion swallowed. I'm not sure about this.
It's Alfira playing her lute, she said, and began pulling instead of leading, causing him to stumble forward. She looked back to see Astarion had caught himself on his staff. She was instantly remorseful and helped to steady him. Love, I'm so sorry.
It's all right. But love, do try and be more careful.
Her blunder made her cheeks flush, but she kept her voice light nonetheless. Shall we go say hello to Alfira?
Astarion took another breath, his face morphing into wistful resignation. If we must. Tav continued to hold his hand while the other held the staff, the irritating tapping a little more cautious. It was bad enough he had to hold the damnable thing, even for the supposed benefit it gave him. The warmth of daylight touched his face, and he felt the subtle pressure of others around him as he was led forward. The cringe he felt in his stomach turned into knots.
Tavriel and Astarion navigated the crowded audience Alfira had gathered. The lavender-skinned tiefling stood on a makeshift stage, her lute in hand. She played with effortless skill, singing a merry tune that set the crowd clapping to the rhythm. Tavriel bounced along sattily, squeezing Astarion's hand. But when she looked up at him, she saw that he was not as enthused by the cacophony around them. His lips were curled up in a wry smile, enduring it for her benefit. Alfira's eyes flicked open, and she gasped in joyous disbelief at the sight of them.
Tav! Astarion!
She explained, jumping down from her stage to greet them. Tav felt Astarion stiffen at his name. She released his hand to give Alfira a long, swaying hug.
I can't believe it! I've missed you so much!
Alfira let go of Tav and turned to Astarion, her eyes falling onto his staff. Confusion flickered across her face.
Astarion, what?
She cut herself off with a tacit realization.
Astarion leaned a little on his staff, his gaze vaguely turned in her direction. The wry smile dimmed slightly, but remained. Hello, darling.
Tavriel, eager to move past the awkwardness, asked, "What brings you here?"
Oh, I had a yearning for the city's clamour. The muse called for me to lift spirits and hearts alike. The energy, the diversity of talents, it's invigorating. Speaking of which, I've got a song to sing. Stay right there, I'll be back in a sec.
Step into the streets where the world takes a spin. Every dream, every whim, let the haggling begin. Silks like rivers, spices so bold, clothes flash colors like sunset dipped in gold. Oh, Baldur's Gate, where the world does meet. Every stall a story, every cobble a beat. From the east to the west, from the grand to the small. If it exists, it's here. We've got it all. A jug of fine wine that whispers in song, a potion that swears it can right every wrong. Scarves that shimmer like a dragon's eye, perfume so sweet they make the stars sigh. Tales are traded with every coin tossed, a bargain struck, a treasure not lost. Oh, Baldur's Gate, where the world does for a sneeze, a knife that cuts whispers, or a book of daydreams, a parrot that curses in 12 different tongues, or a lute that plays ballads when it's strummed just once. Oh, Baldur's Gate, where the world does meet, every stall a story, every cobble a beat, from the east to the west, from the grand to the small. If it exists, it's here, we've got it all.
As the crowd burst into a cheer, Alfira hopped down from her perch on the makeshift stage, running over to Tav. The youthful tiefling gasped excitedly, a thought coming to her. She took Tavriel's hands, bouncing as she said,
Oh, do join us for a song, dear Tav. You still remember the river song, don't you?
Tav's eyes sparkled at the mention of the song, a fond memory from their days at the Emerald Grove, though she took a sidelong glance at Astarion and couldn't decipher his expression. She worried about leaving him standing alone. Even in her exuberance, Alfira sensed the hesitation from both of them and wasted no time when she offered,
Astarion can sit just there, next to the stage. There's enough room for all of us.
Don't worry, Astarion. They'll be looking at me and Tav.
It was unusually perceptive of the tiefling, and rather kind. Astarion shifted his weight, uncomfortable at the thought of being so perceived. "Very well," he sighed, still not entirely sure of himself or this whole damned situation. "But if Tav wanted to sing..."
Sing for me, my love.
Tavriel quietly took his hand and led him a short distance, her glee evident in her squeeze. They stopped. His hand searched and found a perch to sit before he felt Tav's presence leave him there. He let his staff lean against his shoulder. A hush came over the crowd as they watched a new performer climb the little stage. Astarion tried to imagine it, a beautiful high elf woman with a long braid of blue-black hair, joined by the cheerful lavender tiefling, who picked up her lute and began to play. The song filled the air with a lilting melody, nostalgic and hauntingly beautiful.
Starlight rivers carry you,
There was an eruption of applause, with Tav and Alfira beaming at each other on the stage. The tiefling was all smiles, happily touching Tav's shoulder in congratulations for a beautiful performance. Tav took her gracious bows before hopping down from the stage to hurry over to Astarion. He still had his head bowed and leaning against the wood of his staff. He hadn't heard her approach over the sound of cheering ovation. Her hand touched the white curls on his head, but he didn't raise it. Tav leaned in close to him, her head almost touching his, and her hand still buried in his hair. "Astarion, are you all right?" Astarion kept his head down, wiping at his downturned face with the back of his sleeve. After a few moments, he finally lifted his head towards her.
Yes, I'm fine. We should go.
Tav gently tugged Astarion by the arm. "Come on, let's go upstairs."